What is up, guys? Rick is here, and in today's video we are discussing the leveling system in Destiny. Now, I've heard more and more players complain that the new leveling system installed into Destiny with the April update is just too easy. I mean, most players are sitting around at the new max light level of 335 bored out of their skulls, right? Wrong. I think that the leveling system as it is right now in Destiny is the best it's ever been, and I'm campaigning for it to stay for Destiny expansions in the future and for Destiny 2. Now let's discuss why that is and what the concern from these players is coming from. Now firstly, let's discuss what actually got changed in the leveling system with the April update, because the light level system is still very much being used. So again, what exactly changed? Well, it was really just the way the light levels of the rewards are calculated. Now before, pre-April update, when you got a reward, the light level was essentially random. If you were doing a hard mode raid and you got a harrowed piece of gear, that harrowed piece of gear could drop from a 310 light level to a 320, and it dropped just completely random. If you were 319 light level, you would often get 311 and 310 pieces of harrowed raid gear. So what changed with the April update? Well, now when you're getting gear that has the possibility to spawn with a higher light level than what you currently are, that light level is determined based on what your current light level is at the time you open a package or decrypt an engram. For example, you can see here at the time I got my truth, my light level was 325, and I decrypted my truth, and guess what? It was 328, which is simply a little bit better than what my light level was at that time, and that's exactly how this new light level system works. When you're getting gear from an activity or source where that gear can spawn with an overall light level that's higher than what your current light level is, the leveling system senses that and almost always makes that piece of gear spawn with a slightly higher light level than what your current overall light level is. It dials back some of that randomization in getting rewards in Destiny and instead installs a new constant progression system. This means that as players simply play Destiny right now and do activities like the Challenge of Elders, like the raid, even like strikes and getting strike exclusive loot, those players are going to over time constantly progress upwards in light level. However, this progression for some players is going to be a little slower, and the reason simply is because the light level can only be 5 light levels higher on a piece of gear than your current light level. So if you're light level 320, the highest possible light level of a piece of gear that drops for you is 325. Whereas before, if you were doing the raid, and let's say you beat the hard mode raid at 309, you could get a 320 piece of gear. That's no longer possible. However, because progression is more or less guaranteed with this new leveling system, most players do find it relatively easier to level up than before, when you would just get constantly loot that was below your current light level. But again, the accusation from many players is that this new system is just too easy, that too many players reach the new light level of 335 too quickly. Is that the case? And again, I think it's not, but let's discuss where these people are coming from. Because their complaint certainly isn't unfounded, and I'm not going to be like one of those all you do is complain people who can't see that they have legitimate reasons for complaining. Now, the reason why they're talking about the leveling system is just too easy, it makes total sense. Leveling in Destiny is a huge reason in motivating players to actually play the game. They're trying to level up their light level and reach that max light level of 335. If you're going to stop playing Destiny, it's more likely going to be when you're already 335 than if you're 330 or 320. If you're a player who is 320, you go on and you still have a lot of stuff to do. If you're 335, that stuff to do isn't there anymore. Now, I think that there's a couple of different reasons that aren't related to the leveling system per se that are contributing to people leveling up and reaching the max light level relatively easily. Firstly, it's a much smaller gap between what the current light level was and what the new light level is. When light levels were introduced in the Taken King, all of the current year 1 gear, the best year 1 gear, I think only reached a light level of 180, so people had a huge distance to go before reaching the new light level at the time, which was 320. Obviously, because that was a much bigger gap, it's going to take a lot of players much longer to close it. That just makes sense. Secondly, it's a little easier to reach level 335 than it was to reach level 320 before, simply because there's so much stuff to do to let you reach 335 that awards 335 gear. Before, when 320 was the limit, basically if you wanted to reach 320, you basically had to get lucky with engrams, you had to play King's Fall, or you had to do the PvP events like Trials of Osiris, and that was essentially it. I may be forgetting like 1 or 2 extra factors, but that was basically it. Now, to get 335 gear, you can do even just strikes, and that is huge. Getting strike exclusive loot that drops up to 335, there's a huge extra factor. And now you can do the Challenge of the Elders, which is a whole new activity that awards 335 gear. So there's just so much more things that you can do to reach that 335 to get 335 gear. Additionally, the nature of the things that you're doing, for example, doing strikes, which you can do by yourself, doing Challenge of the Elders, which you only need a team of 3 people to do. That's going to allow a lot more players to get that good loot than before. Like I said, if you don't like PvP, basically all you had to do was King's Fall raid, to which you have to match make a 6-player raid group, and if you're trying to use an LFG and you don't have experience, that is going to be a pretty frustrating thing, and that's what really made players take quite a long time to reach the 320 goal, is that actually getting into activities that allowed them to reach 320 wasn't that easy. Heck, even the PvP stuff only showed up every once in a while. Again, now we have a lot more new activities that are very accessible for a lot of players. And a third reason, which actually really does involve the leveling system, but I think it's very important to bring up, is that are you really going to rally against a system that eliminates all the bullshit randomization? Think about before the April update, how many people were sitting at 319, 317 light levels that pretty much deserved to be 320, but were just getting screwed on every occasion. Just couldn't get a ghost that was, above 315 light level. Couldn't get a heavy, couldn't get whatever it was, but there's 1 or 2 things they were just getting purely unlucky about over and over and over again. For myself, I got my main character up to, I think it was 317, 318, and I just gave up. I just didn't even try to go after that 320 because I knew the RNG gods were against me. I knew it wasn't worth my time doing King's Fall over and over and over again to have just a tiny chance to get what I actually needed. But were players like me really not 320? Well, technically we weren't 320, but even though we were a few light levels behind, it wasn't like we didn't know what we were doing, we weren't experienced, or that we didn't deserve to be 320. This new system basically eliminates the BS and gives players the max light level who actually deserve it, who are actually doing the high level content, unlike before where you had players basically who got lucky and players who didn't. So the reason you're seeing so many level 335 characters in Destiny right now is firstly because the jump between light levels of what it was in the past to what it is now is quite small. Secondly, you have a lot more activities, and those activities are a lot more accessible for many players to do. And thirdly, you have a system that doesn't necessarily make it easier, but eliminates the BS and gives the light levels to the players who are actually doing the content and deserve it. Now, if you still feel like leveling up in Destiny is just too easy, if someone from Bungie is watching and saying we have the data, people are leveling up too easy, I think a very reasonable compromise is just scale back the maximum light level that gear can be. Instead of making the light level 5 light levels above what you are, make it only able to go up 4 light levels or 3 light levels, but just keep the constant progression system. That is by far the best system Destiny has ever had in terms of leveling up. And I think it would be a huge mistake to adopt a new system for the new expansion coming to Destiny in fall 2016 or for Destiny 2 coming 2017. Now that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you agree with what I'm saying, spread the word by simply rating or sharing this video. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickCacus. That's going to be linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.